We're behind. They're all fired up. What we got to do? First place, our defense has got to go out there and take the ball. Then when we get the ball, we got to have 11 people that's going to do their job and try to score every time you get the football. If we do that, we'll be all right. Do that, we'll be all right.
Good morning. Good morning. How's everyone doing this morning? How are you doing, Miss Jana?
Good, thank you.
Oh, outstanding, outstanding. We sorry about running a little late. We had some technical difficulties, all right. I ain't going to say what his name was. Anyways, I'm glad everyone's here. We're all looking forward to this. Miss Jana Brody is the daughter of, is it Irwin? Is that right?
Correct.
Irwin and Linda Goldbloom. She is the daughter. And anyways, we're not going to really hesitate too much. Miss Jana, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself first? I notice your artwork back there behind you.
Hi, thank you. First of all, I'm thrilled to be on the show. I'm calling in from Santa Barbara, California. And here I'm a mother of 3 children. I just arrived home last night from Alaska. I now have 3 college children in 3 different states. So I'm a little teary-eyed about that. I am a nonprofit arts administrator. I teach artwork to people and seniors and all ages. And I really like to share and make non-artist people creative and use their creative spark. And again, I'm a visual artist, so writing a book was a new adventure for me.
Okay. Yeah, I can tell. I'll tell you what, let's see. Miss Jana, I'm going to put this up real quick. Let's see if it'll show. There we go. This is the book she referred to. It's Set Behind the Nets, a memoir about a mother killed by a foul ball at a Major League Baseball game. Whew, that had to be one hard book to write. I'll tell you what. Yeah. Are you okay?
Yeah, that picture that you showed too was kind of amazing. On the back cover is the last picture my mom has ever taken. My dad has presence of mind to snap a picture on his iPhone and of the night. It was actually, her wedding anniversary, the week of her birthday, her 79th birthday, and it was my anniversary. It was actually that night was August 25th, 2018. So here we are 5 years later, and the book came out in February, but it was a struggle, but it was also healing. After she passed away, getting hit by the ball, 4 days later, she passed away on the 29th of August. And we, went into our mourning, we did our thing. And I mentioned this in the book. Every time I told the story about, oh, my mom recently passed and she wasn't sick, so people were surprised. So I had to relay the story. Oh, my mom got hit by a foul ball at Dodger Stadium and died. And everybody's mouth immediately falls open and they're, what in the world happened? And so I started sharing my story and did the Dodgers do anything? And I always just, started thinking, repeating this story over and over. Why doesn't anybody know this? It should have been in the news. And why didn't the Dodgers say, rest in peace, Linda Goldbloom? But I'll tell you why they didn't. It was during the World Series race. So I didn't have time for that. So long story short, they did lose the series that year, which I was thankful for. And I reached out, after my mourning period, I reached out and I did some research, started Googling foul ball deaths, foul ball injuries. And sure enough, I found an article that was published in April of 2018. So only months before this incident. And Willie Weinbaum reported that a congratulatory message saying the nets have recently been extended to the dugouts. And we're very thankful for that. Injuries are going down. There's only been one death since 1970. Boy Alan Fish at Dodger Stadium. So once I read that line, my antennas went up, ding, ding, ding. I'm like, wait a minute, how do I get that statistic changed? My mom died in August. So when I sent that, I got an immediate response from him saying, what in the world? What do you mean your mom died in August? No, he's a top journalist in his field, ESPN, and not once, one sentence was ever said to anybody about this. So that's when the avalanche started, and reporters from all over the world, all over the networks, were just bombarding me with interviews and all that. And again, if you Google Linda Goldbloom, you'll get 300,000 hits of stories and messages. And here I am 5 years later with you, Tommy. So it's pretty exciting that I'm still getting the message out. And that's what led me to write the book. So to get the word out, again, even if you don't read the book, the title says everything. Go to the game, support your team, but sit behind the nets.
And that's the important message that you've been wanting to send out for 5 years now. And that's why I'm so strongly standing behind you. Now, you have had people kind of come against you a little bit, I know. But what I wanted to get to was the tragic event of that night. You were correct. The nets were put up, but only to the dugout. And if I'm thinking correctly, they were only 25 feet tall. What happened, and I'm not going to ask Miss Jana to explain totally what happened, but a foul ball went off and it went over the 25-foot netting. It was not a lob ball. It was a straight line, and it was just high enough at the right angles. And anybody that knows anything about velocity and angles, the way they could hit, a lob ball is not going to come in as hard as a straight line. And and distance-wise, it also takes off of velocity. It's kind of hard to talk about, even for me, to what had happened that night. So what Miss Jana proposed after all this had happened, as she said, some of the injuries went down, but she felt like more could be done. And I'm going to ask you this question. Me and you talked that you went to Japan to watch some ball games. Is that correct?
I did. I talk about that in my book as well. My family has 3 generations of family connections in Japan. My father was a wrestling coach and a junior college at Pierce in Los Angeles, and they had wrestling exchanges. So it kind of trickled down. My father and mom, my mother as well, would travel to Japan. They'd come back. Then their children, my age, started traveling to Japan and coming back. And then just recently, a year after my mom's death, me and my daughter went back. So 3 years, we've been, 3 generations have been traveling to Japan. It was actually my second experience in Hanshin Stadium in Osaka. And they're big baseball fans, but they literally have netting 360 degrees around. They have people in the stands blowing whistles if a ball is coming your way. They even have a section called the danger zone, where you can sit in an unnetted section with a helmet, with a glove, and you could, it's a spot where many foul balls go. And if you want that thrilling experience, you buy that ticket and you go, but you do have a helmet on and you do have a glove, and you get to experience that kind of open netting feel. So I feel like that's a pretty safe and respectful and wonderful way to watch baseball.
I do too. That's the reason I brought it up. I was kind of curious. Is that where you got the idea of extending the nets higher and longer? Is that where you got it from?
A little bit, sure, but also just the way that the article was written, that in 2018, it said that the nets were extended. The netting was always behind the dugout. So my parents were sitting in the loge section, which was the yellow, medium, pretty good seats, but it was just above the dugout seats. And the story in the article, the dugout, the netting were going to the dugouts, and that's what they were saying they were really proud about. But most of the, you mentioned velocity, you mentioned players, most of the balls were going beyond that. So my impetus and my advocacy was to extend the nets all the way to the foul poles. And that's what needed to be done after my mom's death. And they also talked about each stadium being individually configured. In Dodger Stadium, they needed to raise the nets behind the home plate, and they did. Again, it took a year to get it done, but they did. And unfortunately, in between that year, a lot of children were getting injured, and that was awful.
Yeah, and that's something I was wanting to get with you on about. The timing of it all is not, for me, as well understood as you. I do have a story of Clarence, who was 32 years old, was hit by an overthrown ball to first base, and I think that was way before Mr. Allen. Is it Fish? Yes, Alan Fish, who was a 14-year-old boy. They got hit by a foul ball, and I think he passed away also. If my memory serves me right, I could be wrong. But the one of the most that catches people's attention, and this is before they put the nets up to the dugout, if I'm correct. There was a foul ball that was hit into the crowd and hit a 2-year-old girl in the face, and it really pulled the strings of a lot of people to have his netting put up, if I'm correct. But then I guess they thought they had it pretty much covered. Before I move on about stretching the nets, you said something in our phone conversation that the baseball players knew of these danger zones. And what would they do when their family and friends would come to watch them play? What would they do?
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right about that. This is and this is a known, thing that there's danger zones, or I think the players call them hot seats, and they know where their foul balls are going and that kind of thing. So I learned, through reading and talking to people that if their families get complimentary tickets, or they get tickets for the games through the Dodgers or whatever team they're playing for, if they're sitting, in the first base line or the third base line beyond the dugouts, those are the hot seats. And that professional baseball players have been known to move their family. Oh, sorry, I'm not letting you sit in those hot seats. I'm actually moving you into seats further back, because they knew of the dangers. And you had mentioned that 2-year-old little girl that got hit. I believe you're referring to Albert Almura, who struck a girl. He actually visually saw the ball hit that girl, and he dropped to his knees, and the game had stopped because he couldn't even go into the batter box at one more minute. It's like, these players do not need to go to work thinking they're going to hurt somebody. But because my mom's was way up high, the camera did not catch it. It never got on the news. But thankfully, when these terrible incidents are happening, they would refer to my mom, and they would say, "Oh, sadly, this 2-year-old child was hit, and there is serious dangers here. Linda Goldbloom passed away by a foul ball, 6 months prior." So I'm thankful that they're using my mom to say, yes, this is an injury, but guess what? It could be a lot serious. You could actually die from this. So her memory was, being used, and the message was getting stronger.
Okay, I'm going to address an issue that is being brought up in the chat room, and it might be best that you bring up the baseball rule. People are asking, and you can explain it if you wish. If not, I'll extend on you. But can you tell them about the baseball rule?
Okay, so I think you're referring to someone in the chat who's saying, did they sue the Dodgers? Could there be a lawsuit? Yeah. And that was the first question that I was asked when I would tell my friends and family, guess what happened? They're like, did the Dodgers do anything? And unfortunately, we were, told from day one that if you flip a ticket over, we don't even have tickets anymore. So this message is even further buried in e-tickets. But it does say on the back of a physical ticket, enter at your own risk. Teeny little letters. In bigger letters, it says, buy a Farmer John hot dog, $22 off. But in teeny letters, In teeny letters, it says enter at your own risk. And that is the baseball law, the baseball rule. And this was written in the 1920s, 100 years ago, when the stadiums were smaller, the players were smaller, the bats and balls were different material, and they were protecting themselves then. So now every Major League Baseball team is still protected. So even, all of these people that are getting injured, and unfortunately, I mentioned in the book too, I'm part of a Facebook group that's private called, injured folks of minor league and baseball, injuries, foul ball injuries. And in my Facebook group is a place where we all vent and we share our heartfelt stories and talk about, how much money these medical bills are every day, every year, ongoing, and there's no compensation at all. There are some people who have tried to litigate and they lose. So you just lose doubly. You lose your money with the lawyer, then you lose the case, and then you can appeal, and then you can lose twice, and then you can appeal again. And so people can't even afford their medical bills. They can't afford litigation. And so it's pretty heartbreaking. But big companies always protect themselves. And this is $1 billion industry. And it's sad. I wish somehow, these people could get their medical bills paid, because it's a problem.
I understand that. And we all know that sports is sports. There are injuries, but when you can prevent those, especially like your mom, this child, the 14-year-old, and there's others. I believe you had statistics on just how many injuries in a year happen, and I'm gonna just give a sample. Between the year of '08 to 2019, there were 39 children that were injured, and most were struck in the head by a foul ball. And that's why we felt like this was such an important message for you to get out. And I know it's been 5 years, but it's just an ongoing thing. And you did say, and I'm going to say about the baseball rule and everything, I can understand it, but it needs to change. It does need to change, especially when somebody gets injured and has medical bills. Some can't afford to do that. But you did say that the MLB has put up the nets since you've been on this campaign, and we're all right proud of it.
Yeah, I'm very proud of that. Again, it took time, and people were getting injured. There was a guy, Jordan Scott, and he may have been connected with you guys in the past, but he was an advocate for foul ball safety now, and he did some personal research, and he learned you can put up the proper netting extended all the way to the foul poles in like 4 days and maybe $60,000. I mean, it was not a big expense.
Yeah.
It's not a big time commitment. And again, they dragged their feet after my mom passed. They dragged their feet for a whole year. And but they did it. I mean, that's part of my book. I use my words for good. I spoke out. I helped get, change made. I'm very thankful for that. And then just this spring, minor league baseball announced that there is a mandate, and that all those stadiums, the minor league stadiums, are mandated to extend their nets. However, they were given till 2025 to do it. And that is asinine. 2 more years of injuries they're going to allow? Like, I do not understand that at all. And the major league parks are a little bit smaller than baseball park, major league park. The same hard-hitting players, the same fans, and a lot of injuries are happening in minor league. There's also spring training and the college level. So that's my next step. I'm still out here 5 years later. I'm saying, what about minor league? What about spring training? What about college ball? These are still hard-hitting players, and people are getting injured. So safety nets, it's not a big thing. It's an easy fix. My father likes to say it's preventable. Her death was preventable. These injuries are preventable. Doesn't take much.
Yeah, and I was sitting there thinking, because we talked, and you said something like the fencing itself. We was trying to figure out if these nettings would take away from the enjoyment of the game. We had talked about a lot of people would go and want to catch that foul ball or the home run and everything. It's more of an experience. And as you said, and I've sat here and watched some videos of this and that, and you cannot tell that the netting's there. You have to have that camera to zoom in, and like you said, after 5 minutes of sitting there, you don't even pay attention to the nets anymore. They're just there for your
I think
safety.
I think you said it perfectly clear, Tommy. And in fact, when you think about it, the most expensive season tickets are directly behind the net, right at the dugout seats. The most expensive tickets people will spend to sit behind the nets. So to get the best view. So if you're in another space behind a net, it doesn't. I have to refer back to the safety belts. There was a day where we did not have safety belts and seat belts in cars. And when seatbelts came out, there were some hecklers who would say, "Oh, they're uncomfortable. I don't want to wear a safety belt. This is silly." That is the same thing. After 2 minutes of buckling yourself, you forget it's there. But it is there to save your life. So that's the thing. People who do say the nets are impeding are it's probably the same people that don't wear their seatbelts.
That's very well put. And we talked about that also. Uh, as we said, in the world of sports, you've got different size balls and stuff like that. A basketball, a soccer ball, football, it may had worse break a nose. And we're talking about the ball itself, not the hits in football. We've had injuries there too. Uh, but you might have basically, like I said, a busted nose, bleeding, maybe knock out a tooth. Nothing severely damaging until the balls get smaller. And I like what you brought up, the NHL league in hockey. They have got plexiglass all the way around the whole arena, and it's for simple reason. That hockey puck is coming what seems to be like 100 miles an hour. And if it gets out of the arena, there could be some severe damage to or severe injury to someone. And it's kind of like it's a no-brainer. Baseball is the next hardest thing besides the softball, and softball's not that hard, and it doesn't travel at the same velocity. A baseball, it does. And it's kind of like the same thing in golf. Golf is a hard hit, well struck ball. It's got velocity depending on what it comes in on. And that's what we're getting at. The nets needed to be stretched higher. That foul ball that caused your tragic event was hit at that right angle, 1 in a million type deals, but it could have been preventable. And I'm with you. And when I see you're still a baseball fan, correct?
Yes, I am. I'm not a Dodger fan, but I'm a baseball fan.
She does not want to say which team it is, and luckily for me, I know which one it is. Uh, but anyways, what I'm trying to get at is she's got nothing against baseball itself, the sport. She loves it, and I want people to understand that you're not out to take down or injure the sport itself. You're looking out for other people's safety. It's what you're trying to do and prevent other injuries. And I'm not on such a Facebook page that you was talking about where people could talk about their injuries and share their emotions. That would be a tough one to be among. But anyways, I want to sit here and see now just how have these nets, have they helped at all? These new ones that you've had put up.
Oh yeah, it's helped. It's helped tremendously. It's helped my father heal. I mean, every time he doesn't go to the games either. He is now 90 years old. He's very healthy, lives alone, but he will never set foot at Dodger Stadium again. And he's a big football fan. He goes to all the UCLA games. He's an alum. He goes to the Rose Bowl, which is another ginormous stadium. So it's not about him getting to the stadium and walking the stairs. It's about the emotional effect of going to Dodger Stadium. So he watches it on TV and he watches again. It's we love our players, we love our teams. It's the management, it's the organizational leaders who are the ones that needed to step up and still need to step up. And I believe that catching those foul ball injuries of those children on camera made it so awkward that they finally had to change the nets because it was like you said, it pulls at your heart. When a 79-year-old grandma gets hit and dies, okay, maybe she wasn't paying attention, which is not true. And these children, but when a 2-year-old gets, traumatic brain injury for the rest of her life, it becomes a big issue. And so I'm very thankful the NLB has extended the netting to all the way to the foul balls. And in Dodger Stadium case, they raised it another 25 feet behind home plate. We're covering the area that my mom was sitting. So that's a big win, a big win. I'm very thankful. And again, I want people to enjoy the game. I want them to have fun, but don't take a chance. Don't, buy your ticket behind the net. It's like going to the theater now. You can choose your seat and you can look at the, the inventory and see where these things are. And you asked if I was a baseball fan, and I'm not shy. I will tell you, I'm a St. Louis Cardinals fan by marriage. I have to keep peace in the home with my husband. And so for 27 years, actually, I don't think we mentioned, Tommy, that August 25th, the day she got struck, was actually my wedding anniversary as well. So it's a crazy day to remember on the calendar. But since August 25th of 1996, I've become a Cardinals fan. And my son is big in baseball, and the Cardinals were coming to town to California. They were playing the Oakland A's, and it's only a 5-6 hour drive. And my son's like, "Come on, Mom, we're going to watch the Cardinals play in Oakland, California." And this was the year after, and I was like, "Ugh, how am I going to get myself in that turnstile? How am I going to sit in those seats and watch live baseball?" So I made a deal with them. I don't want to deprive my son and husband, and I want to be part of making memories. But I designed a T-shirt that said #Raise the Nets, and I made my friends buy all of our tickets, right behind the nets. And it wasn't just one game I had to go to. I had to go to two because we were already drove that distance. We might as well see both games. So twice I got myself there, and it was quite the experience. We were in really good seats, like behind, home plate in that first section. And I don't know if anybody knows Oakland A's Stadium, but it's perfect for your fans. It is currently also a football stadium. So they play football there and they play baseball there. And the configuration of that baseball stadium is very strange because it has to fit into a football stadium. And there's no bullpen. There's no place for the pitchers to warm up, so they warm up right on the sidelines. And the balls were coming all, pop-ups, the easy, foul ball tips, foul ball pop-ups that go up and over the fence. You had mentioned that at the beginning of our talk. Some balls float up and then they float down. So the velocity, you can catch them, or in this case, they were bouncing around in empty seats. These balls were coming over and bouncing around, and me and my son and my husband were all like frozen. It was like having PTSD listening to the clink, clink, clink of these balls bouncing around from these. So it's rough to go to games, but again, I have confidence that we weren't going to get beamed by them. We could duck and move around and potentially catch, a home run ball if you're sitting out that way because the velocity of the ball calms down. But yeah, it's rough to watch baseball these days, and
Well, I wanted people to understand that you're not against the sport, that you're not after anything. You're looking for everybody else's safety. There's a comment in the chat room. What about Little League? And Miss Jana explained it very well. As men and women get bigger and stronger and faster, and by the time they get to college, they're starting to develop more. Your home run hitters, knocking them out. And especially by the time you get up to the pros, major league, they're there. They're very strong. The ball is coming so much faster, and that's where the danger lies. And to answer that, minor league, it's not time for it yet. I don't see the injuries there. And that's what this is all about, is preventing the injuries.
But Tommy, I do need to correct you. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. No.
The minor league, there's more injuries in the minor league because they have less netting and there's less, the stadiums are smaller. So when you think about it, minor league is it's the same players. They're just not paid as much. They're still as good. And so minor league stadiums, there are more injuries in minor league stadiums. So that's why we want it. And you had mentioned even my son's high school raised the nets because their balls were going into the swimming pool of the high school because it's such a small net. It sounds funny, but it was dangerous. So the high school raised the nets. You mentioned Little League. My story is a real life story, but there's a lot of John Irving fans in the world, and there's a book called The Prayer for Owen Meany, and a movie was made about it as well. I reference it in my book. That is a false, a nonfiction story, but excuse me, a fictitious story. Well, now I'm getting off. It's a not true story. And it opens with a foul ball killing his best, a minor, little league baseball. A little boy hit his friend's mother in the head and died. So it does, that was not a real story, but it can happen. I mean, that's the thing. Netting is huge. I went to a book club meeting. A girlfriend of mine had her 20 girlfriends over for a book club, and this was an hour away from my house. I knew nobody in that room. And out of 20 people, 2 people have been hit. One was hit twice at a college game. So she didn't die, but she did get hit, and she did have, a headache and injuries and stuff like that. So, I mean, I think the point you made, Major League is going to get the most impact, but there's injuries the whole way. So, minor league's next. I don't believe they should wait till 2025 to do it. But again, that'll give us more time to share the story and to sit behind the nets, even if you're going to the minor league games. Even if the nets are shorter, buy those tickets, sit behind the nets.
Be aware, be aware. Even though the nets are not up yet, I know we can't push that button and get them nets up there, but at least you're bringing awareness that there is a little bit of danger here that you need to be careful about. I was referring to the Little League, of course, but you're correct. The minor leagues, the spring games, I believe you mentioned before, the college games, they're starting to develop that power, that speed, the velocity coming off the ball. That's where I was going with that. But I appreciate you straightening me out.
Oh, you were talking about Little League. Yeah, your Little League for sure.
Yeah, I'm used to like YMCA, Little League, and that's where I was going off of that. That there's not as much velocity and power that caused the damage that happens to most folks in the injuries. That's where I was going with that. All right. So where can they buy this book from?
So my book is available on Amazon, Amazon.com, Amazon Books, BarnesandNoble.com, local bookstores. I recently kind of excited a long-term fan of Judy Bloom. She's been in the news a lot, and she owns a bookstore in Florida, and she put it in her bookstore. So I'm trying to get it across the nation, but Amazon will shoot it right to you.
Okay. And I believe you can get it from Jana Brody, JanaBrody.com. You can order directly from her if you wish. But anyways, Miss Jana, thank you very much. I think this is a great message that you got going out. We hope you continue success in this. Do you want to be on here while I have a little something to say, or do you want to stay?
I just wanted to thank you again, Tommy and Joe, for breaking, your norm. I know you're big football people, but
Yes.
talking about baseball and getting the word out, I really appreciate you having me on and having your listeners learn about this. So thanks for letting me come on. And again, go Tide.
It's Roll Tide. Let me correct you. Roll Tide. Thank you, Miss Jana. It's been a pleasure. I'm going to say a little something, and we'll get off the air ourselves. Thanks again for coming. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, the reason I got Miss Jana off is because I didn't want to say anything that would, upset her. They are having a family, I'm going to call it memorial collaboration this evening. This is the anniversary weekend for her mom's passing. But I wanted to tell her and all her family, her friends, and Mr. Irwin, we're just as devastated. We don't know what you went through and what you've gone through, but our hearts and our prayers and our thoughts will be with you today. I know it's going to be this evening, and we wish you well. At that, we're going to end. Thank y'all for coming. So y'all have a good, wonderful afternoon, and try to remember Miss Jana, Mr. Irwin this evening as they do a memorialization about their mama. So anyways, thank y'all. We'll see y'all.